Grover's Alpine Express. This mountain-themed kiddie coaster is tucked in the back of the Sesame Street Forest of fun, and the area around it looks pretty good. But is this enough to elevate this coaster, or does it have solid coaster elements as well? Find out in this review as you have more.
Fun on Grover's when it's over.
Opening in 2009, this coaster features the theme of the Sesame Street character Grover riding a sled on the lead car. It is also a clone of Air Grover at Busch Gardens Tampa Bay, Grover's Boxcar Derby at Sesame Place, the Kiddie Coaster at Kolmården, Dragon's Apprentice at Legoland Malaysia, and Fun Pilot at Wallaby, Belgium. Unlike Grover's Super Boxcar Derby, this coaster does not have individually themed buddy cars, as each car is relatively plain with just a simple lap bar restraint. The outside of the cars look good, though, as it looks like a bunch of sleds moving along the track. There's a little theming along the course, which is a real miss for an otherwise excellently themed park in Busch Gardens. However, given the secluded nature of the area as a whole that this coaster is in, and the trees that have grown in the middle of the helixes, it is a lot more theming than you might find on a similar coaster. Looking at you, Air Grover. Zierer Force coasters are quickly becoming enjoyable kiddie coasters for me. Smaller versions like Super Grover's Boxcar Derby, which was at SeaWorld San Antonio, offered a wicked combo of a drop, turn, and a bunny hill. Beach Rescue Racer, also at SeaWorld San Antonio, offers a larger size coaster and some of the best helixes that I've experienced on any coaster. So despite their kiddie size and design, these coasters can offer enjoyable and strong elements. While I was at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, the dispatchers for this coaster was nice enough. Adults are free to ride unrestricted, as with other SeaWorld kid coasters. But with only one attendant to check and dispatch the train, dispatches did move pretty slowly. Furthermore, the one attendant seemed like she didn't really want to be there too much, and honestly, having to pump through a kiddie coaster all by yourself is probably a pretty miserable job for a ride attendant. She would mumble,
Grover's when it's over.
instead of the full phrase for dispatchers, which is,
Now have fun on Grover's and I'll see you when it's over.
but really, this was a nice quirk of character, at least for an adult like myself who was riding. Once dispatched, the train navigates a small pre-lift turn. This doesn't do much in the ways of thrills, but is a nice place for parents to try to wish their children luck as they start off on the journey. After a rather tall chain lift, at least for a kiddie coaster, you crest the first drop. This drop does go down a bit before having you turn into the first of two helixes. In the front, since the trains are very long, this drop won't do as much as the other half of the train is still back on the chain lift. Both of my rides on this coaster were towards the front, and the second and third cars respectively, and the drop was still decent up there, especially with a full train. In the very back car, this drop will likely offer a decent sensation, as Air Grover at Busch Gardens Tampa Bay does just that. So if you are scared or you're a little bit more drop sensitive, I would suggest sitting towards the front of the train just to make sure this coaster doesn't scare you too much. The helix following the drop is an average helix, but it is nice to see an element so big on a kiddie coaster. The laterals and forces were decent to strong at times. On Air Grover, these were very, very neutral helixes, but maybe due to the full train, the forces were decent and enjoyable enough on this version. With a near miss of the trees in the middle, this really has a nice amount of character to it. Next, you crest a small hill between the helixes. This isn't built to really offer any airtime, but does have a smaller drop afterwards. In the back, you will stop halfway down the drop as the front of the train is already coming out of the drop and into the helix, similar to other kiddie coasters that I've ridden with longer trains. which means there's very little drop sensations here. Thus, the middle of the train would likely get the most from this drop, though you get a little bit from the front. Then you navigate a second helix, which is similar to the first, before entering the final brakes and returning to the station. Although there are nice elements on Grover's Alpine Express with only one lap, it does have a weird mix of feeling bigger than most kiddie coasters, while also kinda feeling shorter than most kiddie coasters out there. Overall, how good is Grover's Alpine Express? With a decent drop and 2 enjoyable helixes, plus solid overall theming, this coaster offers enough, especially for its target audience. I could want a bit more, as it is lacking that memorable element that some of the best kiddie coasters out there have, and the lack of a second lap, while making sense given the park's overall attendance, does hurt the fun that one could have on this coaster. I rank it much better than its clone in Air Grover, placing it above Gold Rush at Dewberry Farm. This coaster has decent laterals around its turn, plus some fun pops going down its drop and bunny hill, while still offering a layout that pretends to be relatively mild. I rank it right below Dragon Wagon from Amusement Midway Providers that I rode at the Montgomery County Fair. This coaster offered a few hills with some nice forces to them, and then decent laterals that sometimes came to the surface at the end of the track. With multiple laps, this quick combo of forces just did a bit more than Grover's long, drawn-out layout. How good do you find Grover's Alpine Express? Is this a solid kiddie coaster, or is there a bit more you could want out of it? Let me know, and as always, Cupcoon Crap.